In the dark corner of space, a small cargo ship floated between dead stars. The ship's name was Rustbucket, and its pilot was a man named Jake. Jake was alone. He sat in the cockpit, wearing an old leather jacket and eating cold noodles from a metal box. His ship was quiet, except for the soft hum of engines and the clicking of his spoon. Life was simple. Deliver cargo, get paid, stay out of trouble. Suddenly, a soft beep came from the console. Jake looked up, annoyed. He tapped a button. Incoming message, unknown source. That was strange. He wasn't expecting any calls. He opened the file. A voice played, broken and shaky. Please, is someone there? I need help. I'm not human, but I'm alive. Jake raised an eyebrow. What the hell? He played it again. They're chasing me. I escaped. I have no weapons, no food, no air. They'll find me soon. Please, if you hear this, help me. Coordinates attached. I'm near the red dwarf system. Please. The voice was female, young, afraid. Jake leaned back in his chair. Some alien prank. Or maybe a trap. He looked at the coordinates. They were in the edge of a war zone, Galactic Zone 7. No patrols, no stations, no law. Stupid place to be. He muttered. His ship's AI spoke. Warning, the source of the signal is in a restricted sector. Recommend, ignore. Jake stared at the screen. He should delete the message. He had done it before. So many fake calls, so many alien games, or worse, pirates using fake signals to lure fools. But something was different this time. The voice. It wasn't just scared. It sounded real. Broken. He listened again. This time, he closed his eyes. They'll kill me. My people don't matter to anyone. No one helps us. But humans, you're different. Please. Jake opened his eyes. A long silence filled the ship. Then, he sighed. Damn it. He pushed the thruster control forward. Set course to the red dwarf system. The AI paused. Are you sure, Jake? No, but I'm going anyway. 16 hours later, his ship entered a dead zone of space. There were no lights, no planets, just one small asteroid field and a tiny escape pod. Floating. The AI spoke. Signal confirmed. Life form detected. Female, unknown. Species. Jake suited up and walked to the airlock. He didn't know what to expect. Maybe it was still a trap. Maybe someone was waiting to shoot him. But when he opened the airlock door, he froze. She was standing there, or trying to. A girl, not human. Blue skin, gold eyes, long silver hair, her body weak. She leaned against the pod wall, shaking. Blood black and sticky ran down her arm. Jake stared. You're real. The girl looked up. Her voice was barely a whisper. You came. She collapsed. Jake rushed forward, caught her before she hit the floor. AI, medical scan now. Vitals low. Blood loss. Oxygen near zero. Jake lifted her and carried her inside. He placed her on the med table, connected the oxygen mask. She blinked slowly, looking at him. Why? She asked. Why did you come? Jake didn't know what to say. He just shrugged. Guess I'm stupid. She smiled. Just a little. Then, outside, an alarm. Warning. Unidentified ship approaching fast. Jake looked at the screen. 1 red dot. Then 2. Then 5. Bounty hunters. He turned to the girl. What the hell did you get me into? She opened her eyes. Again, and for the first time, Jake saw it. Not just fear, but guilt, and something hidden. Something important. She opened her eyes to the ceiling of a human ship. Dim lights. Metal walls. A smell she didn't recognize. Old oil, recycled air, and something warm. She tried to sit up, but pain hit her side like a knife. Her skin burned. Her arm shook. A voice spoke gently from the shadows. Hey, slow down. You're not healed yet. She turned her head slowly. The human was there, sitting on a crate, drinking from a metal mug. He looked tired. He looked real. You stayed, she whispered. Jake gave a half smile. I just flew across a war zone. You think I was gonna leave before I got some answers? She sat back slowly. You're different. Jake shrugged. People keep saying that. Not sure if it's a compliment. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the engines. She finally spoke. My name is Lyra. Jake, Another pause. "Why did you send that message?" he asked. She closed her eyes for a second. Her voice was calm, but underneath it, something shook. "I was a prisoner. For almost a year, my planet Trillari was taken over by the Coalition. They call us weak, worthless, said we were too soft. To fight back, they used us for labor, for tests, for fun." Jake looked down. He didn't say anything. "I escaped last week," she continued. "Stole a shuttle. I had no food, no supplies, just that message. I sent it on all channels." She turned her head and stared at him. "But only a human came." Jake raised his eyebrows. "We're not known for being smart." She almost smiled, but then the ship shuddered. He stood up fast. "We're still being followed. Whoever sent those bounty hunters isn't giving up." Lyra sat up, despite the pain. Her voice dropped. "They won't stop, not until they get what I have." Jake's face changed. "Which is what, exactly?" She looked at him. "Do you know what a starseed is?" He blinked. "Myth, ancient tech. Some kind of key that controls a planetary AI system. It's real," she said, "and it's in my blood." Jake stared at her. "You're kidding." "I wish I was." She pulled a small metal chip from the belt at her waist and tossed it to him. Jake caught it. It was warm, glowing faintly blue. He turned it over. "This thing caused all that. They think it's a weapon," she said. "But it's not. It's older than any of us. It can rewrite matter, rebuild planets, or destroy them. Depends on the user." Jake stared at it, then at her. "And you stole it." She nodded. "It was hidden in my family for generations. The Coalition found out. That's why they invaded. Not for power, not for land. For this." The chip began to pulse in his hand. Jake swore under his breath and tossed it back. "Okay, now it's getting interesting." Lyra smiled. "You still want to help me, human?" Jake sat back down, thinking. "I should toss you out the airlock, honestly. Would save me a lot of trouble. But you won't," she said quietly. "No," he said. "I won't." He stood and walked to the console. "We can't outrun them forever. We need a place to hide. Somewhere they can't skin us." "I know a place," Lyra said. "But it's not safe, not for humans." Jake grinned. "I'm starting to think safe is overrated." Before she could reply, the alarm beeped. "Unidentified ship, 20 clicks and closing." The AI warned. "Stealth mode engaged." Jake turned to Lyra. "Get ready if this goes bad. We run to the cargo bay and blast through the debris field." Lyra frowned. "What's in the cargo bay?" "Nothing," Jake said. "That's the fun part." He pulled a lever, and the ship banked sharply to the left. Outside the window, metal fragments floated like frozen raindrops, wreckage from an old war. A perfect hiding spot, if you were crazy enough to fly into it. Jake was. The enemy ship appeared behind them, sleek, black, and deadly. Jake whispered. "Just a little closer." Lyra held onto the seat. "This is suicide." Jake smiled. "Welcome to human rescue missions." The enemy ship fired. The rust bucket shook, lights flickering. Jake pushed the ship forward, right into the heart of the metal storm. Missiles exploded around them, but the debris confused the tracking systems. Then, silence. Jake cut the engines. The ship floated, hidden among hundreds of frozen, twisted hulls. The enemy ship passed above them, searching. Minutes passed. Then, it moved on. Jake let out a breath. Lyra looked at him. "You're insane." He looked back. "I get that a lot." She reached into her pocket and placed the chip on the console between them. Jake looked down at it. "You don't have to help me, Jake. You didn't sign up for this." He stared at the glowing object for a long moment. Then, without a word, he picked it up and slid it into the nav console. "Tell me where we're going." The ship shook again, just slightly, just enough to remind them that silence in space never lasted. Jake stayed focused, hands steady on the controls, eyes locked on the field of stars in front of him. But his mind raced. They had just barely escaped a bounty hunter ambush. The starseed, a glowing, ancient ship with power beyond understanding, was now locked in his ship's systems. And the alien girl beside him, still a mystery. Lyra watched him from the co-pilot seat. She hadn't said much since they fled. Her gold eyes stayed fixed on the stars, as if trying to see something beyond them. "You ever gonna tell me where we're actually going?" Jake asked finally. She blinked. You wouldn't believe me. I just flew into a field of exploding trash with a glowing alien artifact on board. Try me. She hesitated, then said, there's a planet. No name, no map. Dead system. But my people, we call it Vornik. The starseed came from there. Jake raised an eyebrow. And it just happens to be your best hiding place. No, it's worse than hiding. She paused. It's waking it up. Jake turned his head slowly. Waking what up? The source. Now he was quiet. A long silence passed before he muttered, great, a space ghost. She gave a small laugh. Not a ghost, more like an ancient AI, one that built entire galaxies. It's sleeping under Vornik's surface. If I bring the starseed to it, it activates. Jake exhaled through his nose. And what happens then? I don't know, she said honestly. It depends on who's holding the starseed. Jake looked at her. You? I hope not. He stared at her a moment longer, then turned back to the console. Well, that's not ominous at all. The nav system beeped softly. Jake checked the scan. We've got incoming. To ships. Fast. And they're not alone this time. Lyra leaned forward. Coalition, yeah, and they've got a jammer running. We can't jump to hyperspace. Not until we get out of range. She stood, wobbling slightly. Her injuries still weren't healed, but she moved like someone used to pain. Jake looked over. Where are you going? To help. He stood to. Help how? She reached into her jacket and pulled out a tiny silver sphere. EMP pulse, short range, should fry their sensors for 20 seconds. But we need to get close. He looked at the device, then at her, then back at the approaching blips on the screen. 20 seconds, he said. Better be one hell of a distraction. Minutes later, the rust bucket cut all power and floated silently behind a drifting moon rock. The two enemy ships zoomed past, scanning, searching. The trap was ready. Jake whispered into the comms, on my count. Lyra crouched near the ship's open hatch, her hand tight around the EMP sphere. Her other hand trembled slightly, but she steadied it. 3, 2, now. Jake hit the boost. The ship surged forward. Engines roared to life. The enemy ships noticed instantly changing direction, weapons warming. Lyra threw the sphere out into the dark. A soft blue flash burst across the black. Both coalition ships jerked violently, lights flickering, engines cutting for just a moment. Jake took the shot. He spun the rust bucket between them, diving under the disabled ship, flipping the nose up to lock a missile. Say hi to your AI overlords, he muttered and fired. The first ship exploded. The second tried to recover but too late. Jake slammed into full thrust, cutting a sharp angle and disappearing into an asteroid belt nearby. The coalition ship followed, engines sputtering. Inside, sparks flew. Lyra grabbed the wall to steady herself as the ship jolted again. They're gaining, she yelled. Jake barked, not for long. He hit a hidden switch on the control panels. On the outside of the rust bucket opened, releasing long metal rods behind them, like space caltrops. The coalition ship clipped one, then another. Then dash boom. Lyra fell forward as the blast shockwave rocked their ship. Jake whooped. Works every time. The asteroid field vanished behind them, and for the first time in hours, the radar was clean. Lyra looked at him, wide-eyed. That was insane. Jake grinned. You're welcome. She sank into the seat beside him, still panting. Then, softer, thank you. Jake didn't answer right away. He just adjusted the heading. So this Vornik planet, how far? About 18 hours. Jake leaned back. Silence filled the cockpit for a moment. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It was heavier now. Something was coming. Something ancient. Something that might not want to be found. Finally, Lyra whispered, they're not chasing us just for the starseed. Jake glanced over. What do you mean? She looked down at her hands. They're chasing me. I'm not just a girl with a relic. I'm something else. Jake turned to her fully now, frowning. But before he could ask, the nav system beeped. Again. Another ship, this one different. Familiar. Jake single quotes as face darkened. Oh no. Lyra looked up. What? Jake didn't speak. He just stared at the ship's ID. It was human. And it was someone he hadn't seen in years. Someone who had once tried to kill him, his old commander, now working for the highest bidder, and he had just found them. Jake stared at the screen like it had slapped him. The ID code flashed in red. Human ship. Model T for 7. Call sign, Iron Dog. Captain, Commander Rourke. He hadn't heard that name in years, and he never wanted to again. Lyra leaned over. You know, that ship. Jake nodded slowly. Yeah, I do. She waited for more, but he said nothing. His hands tightened on the control panel. He used to lead my unit, he finally said. Back when I fought for Earth's Outland forces, he taught me how to fly, how to kill. Then he sold half our squad to the enemy for credits, disappeared before we could court-martial him. Lyra's gold eyes narrowed. And now he's here. Jake didn't answer. He didn't need to. The radar pinged again. The Iron Dog wasn't alone. Two escort fighters trailed it like wolves. Jake swore under his breath. He's tracking the starseed. Not coalition, not alien bounty hunters. Just good old-fashioned human greed. Lyra looked at him carefully. So what do we do? Jake gave a tight smile. We disappear. He yanked the controls hard, diving the rust bucket into the dense gas clouds of a nearby moon. Static hissed across the console, signal interference. A good place to hide, but also a perfect trap if Rourke got close. The inside of the cloud was thick and red. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The stars vanished. It felt like flying through blood. Jake dropped the engine heat signature, cut the power to minimum, and drifted. Lyra stayed quiet for a while. Then she said, I was supposed to die on that prison ship. Jake looked at her. But you didn't. I kept thinking someone would come. Some fleet. A hero. But no one came. Jake turned back to the window. They never do. I was alone for weeks in that escape pod. She said, I didn't even know if my signal would go through. But I sent it anyway. Just once. She looked at him, and you answered. Jake didn't speak. Outside, something moved in the mist. Lyra tensed. Did you see that? Jake squinted. Yeah, a flash of light. A shadow. Then a voice crackled through the radio, warped and cold. Well, look what crawled out of the void. Jake's jaw clenched. He knew that voice. Rourke. The man laughed. You always were predictable, kid. Hide in a cloud. Turn off your lights. Real smart. Jake reached for the controls. Rourke continued. Now hand over the girl and the artifact. I promise I'll make it quick. Lyra looked at Jake. Her voice barely a whisper. You're not going to, right? Jake didn't answer. He turned off the comm. Hold on. He slammed the controls forward, throwing the rust bucket into a tight barrel roll through the gas. The ship scraped through sharp metallic particles, lighting the cloud with sparks. The escorts followed instantly. We can't outrun them, Lyra shouted. Jake grinned. We don't have to. He flew downward, deeper into the gas, toward something massive. A wreck. A long-dead battleship. Floating silently like a forgotten god in the mist. Jake flew into the corpse of the ship. Its hull cracked open long ago. Now it was a tunnel, rusty. Quiet, dangerous. The rust bucket scraped through, just barely fitting. The enemy ships hesitated. Jake did in single quotes T. Inside. It was a graveyard. Twisted wires, frozen bones, unfired weapons. The lights of the rust bucket illuminated fragments of armor and shattered helmets. Lyra shivered. This place, Jake nodded, end of the Sovereign War. They say the ship refused to surrender, so the enemy turned it into a tomb. The comm crackled again. You always liked drama, Jake, but you're not gonna make it out of that wreck. Jake smiled. Wanna bet? He pulled a sharp left, then a hard right. The second escort ship clipped a fallen turret and exploded. Jake hit the thrusters, pushed forward. Only one follower now. The Iron Dog stayed behind, letting others do the dirty work. Jake turned sharply into the remains of the engine room. It was tight, ugly, risky. The last escort followed, guns hot. Jake yanked a side panel open, exposed wires, sparks flying. He looked at Lyra. When I say now, push that red wire into the metal frame, hard. She looked unsure. Just do it. The escort drew close. Closer. Jake shouted. Now. Lyra shoved the wire into the frame. The ship lit up. A pulse of stolen energy surged out, through the old battleship, through the wreckage and into the pursuing fighter. It fried instantly. Its power blinked out. Gone. Silence again. Jake pulled them out the back of the wreck. Into open space. The cloud broke. Stars returned. Only the iron dog remained, watching, but not chasing, not yet. Jake slowed the ship. Lyra looked at him. That was insane. Yeah, he said. But it worked. She studied his face. There was something heavier in his eyes now. Not fear, not pride, something darker. You're thinking about going after him, she said. Jake didn't deny it. He betrayed you. He betrayed a lot of people, Jake replied. And now he's hunting you. For credits. Like we're nothing. Lyra nodded slowly. I know what that feels like. For a moment, they both just sat there, alone, but not. Jake finally said, let's get to Vornik. And after that, she asked. He looked out the window. We finished this. The planet looked dead. No lights, no satellites, just cracked stone, wind, and endless gray. Thick clouds circled the atmosphere like coiled ash. Nothing moved on the surface, nothing alive. At least. Jake hovered above it in orbit, hands resting on the controls, but his jaw tight with hesitation. This is it, he said, staring at the screen. Lyra nodded slowly. Vornik. My ancestors called it the grave of stars. Jake raised an eyebrow. That's comforting. They stood in silence for a few seconds, watching the bleak surface turn slowly beneath. Then Lyra said, it's not the planet itself, it's what's buried underneath. She opened a compartment behind her seat and pulled out the starseed. It pulsed faintly, brighter than before, almost like it was sensing something. Jake noticed. That thing's been getting louder since we got close. Lyra didn't respond right away. She looked down at it, her face calm but focused. It's calling to the source. If we activate it, it might unlock more than just knowledge or power. Like what? Jake asked. She looked up. Doors, machines, maybe your memories. Jake frowned. Memories. This isn't just a machine, she said. It's aware, part of something bigger. It remembers things, places, people, and it chooses. Jake gave a long sigh. I really miss when my biggest problem was customs paperwork. They began the descent. The rust bucket cut through the clouds and emerged into open sky. Or what passed for sky here. Vornik looked like a burned battlefield. Jagged black rocks, twisted metal spires half buried in sand, and long lines ruins that stretched like bones across the horizon. The ship landed on a wide, flat stone plate near the edge of a massive crater. As the engines powered down, the silence felt heavier. Jake grabbed his coat and checked his pistol. Lyra placed the starseed in a small containment ring on her wrist, where it hummed softly. You ready? He asked. No, she said. But we go anyway. They stepped out into the wind. It wasn't cold, but it wasn't warm either. The air smelled metallic, old, like a machine waiting to breathe again. Lyra led the way, moving slowly toward the crater. Each step echoed louder than the last. The ground beneath them wasn't natural. The sand shifted slightly, but not like dust, more like fabric being walked on. After 30 minutes of walking, they reached the center. And the crater wasn't a hole, it was a door, a massive circular gate, built into the ground, covered in alien script neither of them could read. Jake stared. This thing looks ancient. It is, Lyra said. This is what the starseed connects to. This door leads to the core. She held her arm over the center of the gate. The starseed pulsed. Once, then again. The ground vibrated. A ring of light spread outward, thus blew back. The alien script on the gate lit up in sequence, one symbol at a time, like it was waking up. After sleeping for centuries. Then the center of the gate cracked open. A spiral ramp began to descend slowly into darkness. Jake didn't move. You sure about this? Lyra looked at him. No. But it's the only way. They walked into the spiral. Down, down, down. The deeper they went, the less sound there was. Until finally, even their footsteps felt distant. Then the ramp ended, and they stood inside a giant underground chamber. Pillars of glowing stone rose around them. Floating machines hovered silently above platforms. Blue light poured from cracks in the walls. It was beautiful and terrifying. Lyra stepped forward. The starseed on her wrist flared suddenly, so bright that Jake had to shield his eyes. And then everything moved. The chamber responded. Machines shifted, Lights turned. Symbols appeared on walls. A hologram burst into the air in front of them, an image of a woman. Not quite human. Not quite alien. Her skin shimmered like water. Her voice echoed in perfect calm. Starseed bearer identified. Genetic match confirmed. Do you seek activation? Lyra hesitated. Jake stepped up beside her. You don't have to do this. She looked at him, and something deep passed through her expression. Not fear. Determination. She nodded. Yes. The chamber changed. A beam of light scanned Lyra from head to toe. The machines pulsed in sequence, one after another, like a signal was being sent. Then the voice returned. Source preparing to awaken. Warning. Signal detected. External contact. Unauthorized presence approaching. Jake's stomach dropped. Rourke. Lyra's eyes widened. He followed us. Jake turned. We have to get back to the ship now. They ran. But as they reached the top of the spiral ramp again, the sky above Vornik was no longer empty. 3 ships, human, armed, and one of them was landing fast. Jake raised his pistol. Looks like your old commander brought friends. Lyra stepped beside him. The starseed was now glowing like a second sun. Jake glanced at it. It's reacting to him, he said. Lyra nodded. Or it's warning us. A figure stepped out from the ship that had just landed. Rourke, armor-clad. Smiling like a man who thought the end of the world would make him rich, he raised a hand. Jake, you always had a thing for hopeless cuzzes. Jake didn't smile. You always had a thing for selling out. Rourke looked past him at Lyra. So, that's what all the noise is about. He stepped forward, calm, confident. But behind him, something else was rising. A sound, a tremble. The ground began to pulse beneath them again. The starseed wasn't just reacting. It was waking something far older, far bigger, and it wasn't on anyone's side. Jake didn't blink. He had his weapon raised, finger steady near the trigger. Eyes locked on Rourke's every step. The man hadn't changed. Same arrogant grin. Same heavy footsteps like he owned the ground. But there was something colder about him now, not just a traitor, a hunter. Behind Rourke, 2 more mercenaries stepped out of the second ship. One wore coalition armor. The other was human, but branded with a syndicate tattoo across his neck. Different flags, same purpose, chase power. And they were here for Lyra. Jake glanced sideways. She stood still, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the light of the starseed. It pulsed against her wrist, steady and slow, like a living heartbeat. She looks fragile, Rourke said, circling them slowly. Funny how small things always make the most noise. Jake didn't move. Walk away, Rourke laughed. You think I came here to negotiate? Jake, you brought me straight to the prize. I should thank you. His eyes flicked to the starseed. She doesn't even know what she's carrying. She knows enough, Jake said. Then she knows it doesn't belong to her. Jake stepped forward. And it sure as hell doesn't belong to you. The 2 marks behind Rourke raised their weapons. Jake raised his own. Silence stretched tight between them. Then a voice came from behind Jake, calm, familiar. Put it down. Jake froze. He turned slowly. A woman stepped out from behind one of the crater's stone ridges. Human. Tactical. Armor. Sharp eyes. She lowered her hood. Jake's heart dropped. Marin. Lyra looked confused. Who is she? Jake didn't answer. He couldn't. Marin walked closer, gun pointed straight at him. But her expression almost apologetic. You still pick the worst sides, she said softly. You were dead, Jake said. 3 years ago. I saw your name on the memorial wall. Marin didn't smile. You should have looked deeper. Jake lowered his gun an inch. You joined him? He offered a future, she said. You just offered pain. Lyra stepped forward. But Jake held his arm out to stop her. Rourke chuckled. See, Jake, you were always alone. That's your curse. Jake looked at Marin. Something bitter in his voice. You followed me into hell once. I did, she said. But you came back empty. And I was done following ghosts. She reached out toward Lyra. Hand over the artifact. Lyra shook her head. No, I don't want to hurt you, Marin said. But I will. The starseed pulsed harder this time. Lyra winced. It doesn't want you. Rourke tilted his head. What did she say? Jake stepped in front of Lyra again. It chooses who uses it. It's not just a tool. She's lying, Rourke snapped. But then the ground shook. Not like before. Not just tremors. This was different. A deep, slow hum echoed from below. Machines waking, systems connecting, energy building. Rourke took a step back. What the hell did you activate? Lyra's voice was flat. The source is awake. Above them. The sky cracked open, just a thin line across the clouds, like something enormous had blinked. And beneath their feet, the earth moved. A giant platform began to rise, pushing dust and rock into the air. Symbols lit around its edge. It rose higher and higher until they stood on a massive, floating disk, now glowing with ancient light. The marks scrambled back. Marin kept her weapon up, but her hands shook. Lyra looked at Jake. "We need to leave." He nodded. But as he turned, Marin pulled the trigger. The shot caught him in the side. He hit the ground hard. Breath stolen from his lungs. "Jake." Lyra dropped beside him. Blood spread across his jacket, dark and quick. Jake tried to speak, but the pain surged through him like fire. Lyra turned to Marin, eyes full of fury. The starseed flared so bright it turned the world white. The mercenaries screamed, falling back. Blinded, Rourke stumbled, holding his face. Marin stood frozen, gun still raised, but her expression cracked. She hadn't expected the shot to hit like that. She hadn't expected regret. Lyra stood, the starseed on her wrist lifted into the air. Spinning slowly, she spoke, but her voice echoed, no longer just her own. "This power is not for your hands. Step away, or be erased." The air around her shimmered. A wave of pressure pushed outward, silent, invisible, but strong enough to knock everyone back. Even Marin. Only Jake remained at her feet, struggling to breathe. Lyra knelt beside him again. "I'm sorry. I should have stopped them sooner." Jake grabbed her wrist weakly. "No, this is yours, your fight." "I don't want to do this alone," she said. He tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. "You won't." "Not yet." Behind them, Rourke screamed, "Take her down." Blaster fire tore through the air, but it never reached her. A shield, pure energy, formed around her like a sphere. The bullets dissolved before touching it. She stood again. And with one final pulse, the starseed fired a beam of light into the sky. The clouds split fully now, and from the dark beyond, something responded. A shape. Huge. Descending. Alive. Rourke single quotes S. Men started to retreat. Even Marin lowered her weapon. And Lyra whispered, more to herself than anyone, "They're coming." Jake blinked up at her. Who? She looked down, eyes wide with wonder and fear. "The ones who built this, the original starseed creators." She looked at Jake again. "And they're not happy." His sky had split open. A shadow descended, massive, silent, and shaped like nothing built by any known species. Not a ship, not a station. It didn't fly. It hovered without sound. A presence more than a machine. Jake watched it from where he lay, clutching his side. Blood still soaked through his jacket, but the pain had dulled. Or maybe everything else had just become louder. Lyra stood in the light of the starseed, her golden eyes reflecting the impossible shape above. She didn't move, didn't speak. Something ancient was looking back at her now, and it was deciding. Round them, everyone else had gone still. Rourke's mercenaries had lowered their weapons. Marin stood behind them, breathing hard, gun forgotten at her side. Even Rourke had stopped yelling. The massive shape in the sky pulsed once like a heartbeat, then released a sound so deep it wasn't heard. It was felt in bone and blood and memory. Lyra flinched. Then the voice came not from above, but from inside their minds. Bearer acknowledged, genetic path verified, companion, anomaly detected, unbound, illogical, human. Jake coughed. "Hey, nice to be noticed." The voice continued, "You interfere with an inheritance not meant for your kind." "Why?" Jake tried to sit up but failed. "Because no one else came for her." Silence again. Then the voice returned. "Explain." Jake turned his head, weak but steady. She was dying. Alone. Everyone else ignored her call. But she asked for help, so I answered. Without gain. He laughed, though it hurt. "Honestly, I didn't think that far." The ground trembled. A beam of light descended from the massive shape and touched the starseed. Lyra cried out, but didn't fall. Memories, millions of them, flashed through her mind. Wars, cities of light, collapse, rebirth, beings of metal and stars. She saw her ancestors fleeing across the galaxy, carrying the starseed in secret, always hunted, always hiding. And in the center of it all, a figure, not alien, not machine. Human. From a time before time, a creator. She staggered back, panting. Jake looked up. What happened? She reached down and helped him sit. Her hand was shaking. The starseed didn't start with my people, she said. It started with yours. Jake frowned. That can't be right. It is, she said. Humans didn't come late to the stars. You came first, then forgot. The voice returned. She speaks truth, Earth-born origin, unacknowledged lineage, splintered memory. Rourke stepped forward now, disbelief all over his face. You're telling me humans built that thing, once, the light from the ship, intensified, decision required. Shall the inheritance pass to the bearer, or the anomaly? Jake looked at Lyra. Lyra looked at him. You take it, he said. She shook her head. You nearly died for it. I didn't come for power, he said. I came because you shouldn't have been alone. She smiled through the tears. Neither should you. She took the starseed from her wrist and placed it in his hand. The light shifted. The machines around them reacted instantly, panels rising, paths forming, ancient circuits igniting one by one. The structure beneath them became alive. The starseed floated above Jake's palm, pulsing, waiting. The voice returned, gentler now. You choose neither war nor dominion. You choose connection. The starseed dissolved into light and entered Jake. For a moment, he felt everything. The weight of stars, the silence between galaxies, the loneliness of long-dead machines, the first heartbeat of a newborn sun. It didn't hurt. It simply was. Then the light faded, and Jake stood, unaided, wounds gone, changed. The ship above them dimmed, no longer watching, only resting, and then slowly it rose. The sky closed behind it. The world grew still. Jake looked at his hands. I don't feel powerful. Lyra stepped beside him. Maybe that's what makes you ready. Rourke broke the silence. None of this matters. That thing's gone. And you're still just two nobodies. He raised his weapon. A shot rang out. But not from him. It came from Marin. Rourke collapsed. She lowered the smoking barrel. Jake looked at her. Why? Marin's voice cracked. Because for once, I wanted to be on the right side of a story. No. One spoke for a while. Then Lyra said softly, we have to leave this place. The others will come. They always do. Jake nodded. We'll be ready. As they walked back to the rust bucket, Lyra looked back once at the place where the gate had opened, where the ground still glowed faintly with ancient light. You could have taken everything for yourself, she said. Jake shrugged. I already did. She smiled. What? I took the most dangerous, impossible, annoying alien girl in the galaxy into my ship, and then I didn't throw her out the airlock. That's got to count for something. Lyra shook her head, laughing. Through the tiredness, you're insane. Jake looked up at the stars. Yeah, but no one else would have done it, and somewhere light years away, in a part of the universe untouched for eons, another gate flickered to life. As if waking up. As if sensing something new had begun, and it had started with a human.